What is up, guys? My name is Caleb, and welcome back to another episode of Questions with Caleb, the show where we do a deep dive at all the things that you want to know more about. Now, I am not shy about my criticisms of the church as a whole. I don't back down from the things that I think need addressing. And as a result, I get a lot of questions like, okay, we know what you think the church shouldn't be. The question is, what do you think the church should be like? And this is a great question because after all the years I've done ministry, I think most people get the answer incorrect. And so that's the question that we are answering today. What should the church be like? Or what does a healthy church look like? And we're going to start in a little bit of an unorthodox place. We're going back to the Old Testament in Joshua chapter 20. We're going to be talking about the city of refuge. And this may not be something you're familiar with. It's not a passage that is preached on very often. So let me give you some context. God gave Moses a set of laws. And in this law, it said that if I killed somebody and everybody saw me do it, everybody knew that I was guilty, it was the family's job to avenge the victim's death. So if I killed your cousin, you were supposed to come and kill me to keep the community safe and to avenge the death of your loved ones. But the problem arose, what if nobody saw the murder happen and I was just being accused of it? Or what if it was an accident and I didn't mean to? Now all of a sudden, I may not even be guilty of a crime and I have this family that is trying to track me down. And that's why God created and set into motion these cities of refuge. So I would run into the city that was designated, and then it was that city's job to protect me from the family that was coming to avenge the death of their loved one until I was able to be extradited back to the city I was from, stand a trial, and then if they found that there was no evidence that I had committed a crime, I would live in the city of refuge until the death of the high priest that was overseeing my trial in general. And so basically that left enough time after I was declared innocent, enough time for the family to kind of cool down and the community to relax. That way, eventually it was safe for me to come back. Now you might be wondering, what in the world does that have to do with a modern day church? Well, take a look at the players in our story. First, you have the accused that is very literally trying to outrun death and the consequences of their potential decisions. And then you have those within the city that are safe, protected, and innocent. And then lastly, you have the high priest. And the only way that the life of the accused is ever going to go back to what it was designed to be is by the death, eventually, of that high priest. Now, some of you may already be seeing the symbolism. The New Testament refers to Jesus as our high priest. It also says that the wages of sin is death. And so you begin to see ourselves, humanity, inside of the accused, right? Before we come to Jesus, we stand accused of a grave decision against God, and judgment is coming. And the only way we are able to circumvent that judgment coming down on us is by the death of Jesus or a high priest. And so the only thing left is a group of people that are already innocent, that are already safe and protected. And this is the church, right? They found innocence through the work of salvation and protection within the community of the local church. And so this brings out a couple of key ideas that I think are really important for people to understand how the church is supposed to function. Because sadly, the way that a lot of churches function is not at all the way they were designed to be. So here are three things that I think it's important for us to realize about what a church should look like if it is functioning well. Number one, the church should draw the worst among us. In the same way that that city in our story was constantly drawing the accused killers, we too should have a constant flow of people with dark pasts, criminal histories, and generally rough edges. A great way to evaluate the health of your church, whether you are on mission and on point, is to stop on a Sunday morning, take a look around, and ask yourself if there's anybody in the room that has a reputation around town, anyone that makes you uncomfortable to think about even going and talking to them. If everyone is perfect and looks very put together, you should ask yourself whether you really believe your church is going towards the mission of the gospel. Because in the same way that the city of refuge by design drew people because of the hope that it offered, we too should be drawing those people because the hope that we offer through the work of Jesus Christ. A lot of times we like to tell people that churches are hospitals for sick people, but then we like to complain when somebody comes in and bleeds on our carpet. Number two, the church should help its members understand that it isn't about them. If you look at the mission of the city of refuge, it wasn't about the citizens that were already living in that town. It wasn't about creating great tourism. It wasn't about creating economic boom. It wasn't about making the lives of the people inside of it the most comfortable. The mission was for the people not inside the city, but the people out that really needed it the most. Oftentimes we buy into a consumer mindset with church and we think that the pastor needs to preach the way I need it to. The worship needs to be exactly the way I like it. And the programs need to appease all of my children. But the reality is that everything that you are looking at in your church isn't supposed to be geared towards you. It's supposed to be geared towards the people that need you. And a part of spiritual maturity is connecting that dot and realizing that I won't always be happy, but I need to find my joy in the fact that we are reaching other people, reaching the lost, reaching those that are running away from the proverbial weight of death. And that's difficult. I understand that it isn't easy. When the people allowed in accused killers, do you think it was easy for the fathers to let these men walk around town, around their kids, around their wives? I'm sure it wasn't a safe feeling that they got all of the time, but that uncomfortable feeling that they had was the backbone of what made that city special. The only reason that we are even talking about it today is because they were willing to sacrifice their own comfort in order to be a backbone of God's plan. Number 3, the focus should be on the high priest. As you read the story of these cities of refuge, you realize that the importance is not placed on them. The importance is placed on the high priest. And in the same way, it's easy for us as churches to get caught up in the same game that a city would have. Right? There were more than one city of refuge that is talked about in the Old Testament. And it would have been easy for them to compare each other and say, hey, it's been 3 years since an avenging family was able to catch one of our people. Or look at how big and beautiful our defensive walls are, how impressive our armies are. But that wasn't what the story talked about. It talked about the important role that the high priest made in the life of the person that was trying to escape death. In the same way, we as churches oftentimes get tempted to compare against each other's worship team and Instagram accounts and how good our preacher is. But the reality is that when a church is doing what it is supposed to do, the focus shouldn't be on us. It should be on Jesus or the high priest as referenced in our story. Because ultimately, it doesn't matter how nice the city of refuge was. It didn't matter how good the greeting team there was. It didn't matter how the person felt inside the city as much as them understanding the role of the high priest in their life. Because the problem that I hadn't mentioned was that if they went back to that town, even after being declared innocent, if they went back to the town before the high priest had died, they were eligible to be killed by that family and no one was going to stop them. And so it was vitally important that the city of refuge shine a light on the most important thing, which was the high priest. In the same way, it is most important that we shine a light on Jesus and not ourselves. And so a great way to evaluate whether your church is healthy and on mission is what is emphasized, what is talked about. If it's Jesus, congratulations, you're going to a killer church. If it seems to be on everything else, the question would be whether you're in the right place. Well, I hope this has kind of helped you grow and think a little bit about what it means to have a good church and what a church should look like. I would love to hear your guys' feedback in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You can follow us on all of our social media at OTK Media. If you'd like to support everything we're doing, it's patreon.com/OTK Media. And until next time, we love you very much. Bye-bye.